I'm not here to change what you do. Let's get in the ring, shadow box for 2 rounds, and I'll see what you can do. Unfortunately, most trainers today aren't teachers of boxing because they weren't taught. You know, you're living off the fact that you beat Claressa years ago. If you guys ever step in the ring and fight each other as pros, you're going to see a totally different fight from a totally different fighter. And, you know, maybe she knows that in the back of her mind, so up to this point, she really hasn't pushed it. But now, you know, you talked a lot and you said certain things. Now it's almost upon us. So, you know, in a few months, you got to prove how truly good you really are.
I always pick the worst places. I mean, this is like a corridor, but we're gonna work with it. We're gonna work with it. Coach, what I'd like to say is, first of all, a massive welcome to the UK. Big respect to you after all your accolades. And you're the coach of Claressa Shields, so October Red Boxing. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to train the G-Walt.
Well, thank you first off for having me. I appreciate it. It's always nice to be able to have someone allow me to voice my opinions on certain things. You know, training Claressa is a wonderful experience. She's the first female that I ever trained, and well, second. And you know, she's dedicated to boxing. And you know, I tell her, not in a bad way, but she fights like a guy. She has the same style as a man, which works well for her because most females don't fight in that manner. She's a tremendous talent, and you know, the sky's the limit for her. And we look forward to bigger and better things from Claressa.
You said that she trains like a man, and you're someone that's got years of long experience training Claressa. I've been told that you've had her for the last 9 fights. Tell us about that coach and fighter relationship and how important it is to develop a fighter's career.
Well, you know, the last time fights have been wonderful. I mean, when I first got with her, she knew how to fight, and I try to tell people, she knew how to fight before she met me. My job is to refine her skills and make her a better fighter than she is when she got with me. And she's listened to me, she respects me, and the things that I tell her she trusts, and she does. Wonderful talent. You know, the sky's the limit for her. You know, and when I tell people, I want to just say something. When I tell people that she fights like a man, not in a bad way. Her style is like a man's style. She fights the way most men fight, which is very rare in women's boxing. I haven't seen one female that fights the way she fights, and that works to her advantage because it's a step up for her, and most females can't fight at the level that she fights at, which is, you know, not her fault. So to answer most of your question, I didn't get all of it. I'm old, so I forget some of it. But you know, Claressa is a wonderful talent. And just working with her, for me, is wonderful because everything I ask her to do, if she can't do it, she at least tries it. And if she can't do it, then we move on to the next thing. Because I'm not here to change her style, just to add and make her better at what she does.
And we hear that quite often. You know, you're not here to change her style. You're here to build on the style that she's got and make her become the best fighter that she is. Sometimes we see coaches try and impose their style on a fighter and morph their fighter into who they were. You, as a fighter, a previous fighter, how did you then say, okay, Claressa, we're going to develop your style, we're going to see what you can do, and I'm going to add my sauce in that to make you become better?
Well, you know, I've always felt that not to try to change anyone's style. And, you know, unfortunately, in today's boxing world, a lot of so-called trainers are not teachers. And so what they do is what they think works for them is going to work for you. That's not how it works out in boxing. Everyone's different. Every style is different. It's like me trying to train someone to fight the way Roy fight. Better yet, it's like Roy Jones trying to teach someone to fight the way he fought. It's very difficult. Roy was a great fighter, and his style was unique. He's like Ali. Those styles they don't come along very often. That style was a unique style. And you know, Roy's my friend, but so I hope you don't take this wrong, but to teach people the way he fought, can't do it. It's natural ability. But you can always teach a fighter the fundamentals of boxing and make them become good, and they become great from what they learn. Most fighters don't realize, or most people in general, in boxing, fighters learn from other fighters. That's how we steal, you know, as amateurs and young professionals, we steal from each other. And you may go home and work on this or that, and whatever works for you, you use it. Which doesn't work for you, you throw it away. And that's how we get better. The sparring sessions, sparring top-notch fighters. You fight them with each other, and you learn from them, and your skills become better. You hone your skills, and you become a better person and a better fighter. And that's where, you know, trainers, their trainers were good, and there's teachers that were good. But most fighters learn from each other. You learn in sparring sessions and you say, oh, that didn't work, so let me try something different. Or this worked, and let me keep perfecting it. And that's how we really learn. A true good fighter learns from other fighters and just watching other fighters fight and then taking certain moves and putting it in their repertoire and making it work for them. And that's how a fighter gets better. Just learning from other fighters and watching what's going on, and then you just kind of steal certain things from certain people and make it work for yourself.
It's almost like a morphing of styles over time. You know, you take that ingredients, your mom had the soup that she used to make, and it passes down through generations and generations, and we all add something different to it. So when Claressa first came to you, or you found Claressa, tell us how that started and why you decided to take her on as a fighter, because it's not an easy decision. You have to be able to gel with that fighter. It doesn't matter how good they are. How did you know your fighter-trainer-coach relationship was going to work?
Well, you know, that's a very good question that you're asking, because the way Claressa and I met, you know, no one introduced us. One day I got a phone call from a manager, Mark Taffet, and a promoter, Dimitri Salidas, and they asked me would I train Claressa. I said, not a problem. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't really into female boxing, so I didn't really study Claressa. I heard she wanted to go medal, and that was cool. So one day she walks in the gym, and I'm there, and so we just say hi to each other, and we just start working. There's no formal introduction. We just meet one another. There's no one there to introduce us. And, you know, we just went to work, and I let her know, like I tell all my fighters, listen, let me just let you know up front, I'm not here to change what you do. Let's get in the ring, shadow box for 2 rounds, and I'll see what you can do. And so once she did that, I said, listen, let's not change anything. Let's just make you a better fighter than you are right now. And, you know, she was happy with that, because, you know, in her mind, she probably thought I was going to try to change everything. No. Why change something that works very well for you? So, you know, we just worked together, and with each passing fight, she believed in me more and more. And, you know, the first fight we had together, she got knocked down. Her first professional knockdown. So when she came back to the corner, she was expecting me to start screaming and hollering at her and say, what happened to you? My first question was, hey, you got knocked down. How you all right? I said, now let's go to work. You know, you start using that jab, start feinting your opponent, setting her up for different shots. And she was surprised by that, because I didn't start screaming at her and saying, you know, what's wrong with you? What happened? No, for what? You already went through what you went through. Let's get back to what we have to do, the task at hand. So, you know, for me, my biggest gripe with boxing today is there's not that many real teachers that are left. There's a lot of guys that do a lot of, you know, mid work. And I say this not in a bad way, but, you know, Floyd and Roger, they kind of ruined boxing for these guys, because even though what he did with the pad work was great for them. But what people don't realize, behind closed doors, him and Roger worked. They didn't do the mid work. They worked on the tactical part of boxing to get ready to dissect their opponents. And these young guys today, they don't realize that. They think it's just all flash and you know, lights. No, you have to get behind the scenes and work. And you know, unfortunately, most trainers today aren't teachers of boxing, because they weren't taught. You know, and what I tell most fighters and all my European fighters that were once former champions and former top-notch fighters, start teaching these young kids how to fight. Get back into boxing and start teaching. They need your expertise. You know, these guys that never fought, that are trying to teach people how to fight. How can you teach me how to fight if you never fought? How can I teach you how to you know, be like Evel Knievel and jump off motorcycles if I've never done that? I don't know what's going to happen. And the same thing with boxing. You can't teach me something that you've never done. And that's the problem with today's fighters they're being taught by guys that never boxed. So how can it be round 12 and you're tired and you're going after the last round? I'm trying to tell you what to do, but I never experienced that myself. And so that, you know, that's the biggest thing with that. But having said that, you know, like I said, with Claressa, I don't have that problem. She's wonderful to work with, and whatever I ask her to do, she does it. If she can't do it, we move on to the next phase. And, you know, her and within herself, there's so much confidence with her being a 2-time Olympic champion and massive belts, so I can't even name all of them. But, you know, she knows in her heart how good she is. And she knows that she can beat most male fighters. And, you know, so with her, just tremendous confidence that it exudes all around her. And that's the beautiful thing about her, is you don't have to worry about her being afraid to fight anyone in boxing.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that she's not a fighter that fears anything. Claressa's personality, we heard, you know, I think, was it Callie saying about, obviously, Chris Eubank, it's a bit of Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. Claressa exudes that confidence. And sometimes I think people get irritated by that? As a fighter, as a champion, and you listening to those type of comments or the feedback, how does she deal with that?
She deals, Claressa deals with when people try to bad talk her or say bad things about her. She deals with that really well, because, like I said, she's headstrong. Her mental strength is great. Behind closed doors, it might mess with her a little bit, but she gets past all that. She knows what she has, her task at hand. Every fight, there's going to be somebody in front of her. So she can't worry about what the people say on the outside. And, while it may bother her for a moment, she gets past that and says, okay, forget them. Let me go forward and take care of my opponent. So, that's with any athletes. Sometimes certain things might hurt you that people say about you. But you have to get past that and look past that and say, you know what, hey, first of all, especially in boxing, I'm in the ring with this guy here. He's trying to hit me. I can't worry about what someone on the outside said about me. And, she does that very well. Criticism she takes well, and she moves past that, and she worries about her opponent and life after boxing. The wonderful thing about Claressa now is she's a strong advocate, which she should be for female boxing, because a lot of times they are overlooked. They're in the shadows, and maybe the money's not what it should be for them. And I'm all for that. If you're a good athlete and you deserve to be paid like on a male scale, then get paid. And so I think things are starting to break, and you can see where eventually, I don't know how long that road is going to take, but women are starting to get their just dues as far as the publicity and especially the money. I hope it just comes sooner than later. So hopefully we'll see.
I like the way that female boxing is moving. It's not something that's new, but it's definitely something that has been a hard wall to break down. We're starting to see that wall come down now. The fighters are getting their recognition, and that is why I asked that about Claressa, because she has had to shout extremely loud to get herself noticed. I'm one of these boxing fans that believe that she hasn't really got the recognition that she deserves. She is only 26 years old. She has only had 11 professional fights. She has achieved so much before she turned professional. And sometimes I think that's like, she's not given the credit, and that's why I say, because she exudes this confidence, how does she deal with sometimes the backlash that she gets when she's just screaming and saying, look at what I'm doing?
It's hard for her sometimes. We're all human, and behind closed doors, I know it's hard for her. She may not show it even in front of myself, but it has to be, every day I'm fighting the same thing. I'm fighting the same battle. When do we get equality for our sport? People are downgrading her and saying, oh, we're not that good. Well, she is that good. She's done, believe it or not, she's done more than most male fighters, and done a lot more than any one male fighter has really done in a short period of time. She set records, and she won 2 Olympic gold medals. No American fighter has done that, ever. Not in boxing. And that alone puts her apart from everybody else. And then she's come into professional ranks, and she's won multiple titles in multiple divisions. Not 1, not 2, but 3. So how can you really argue and say, oh, well, they're going to say, well, she fought a female. Okay, so what? That's what's in front of her. That's what she was born. But the card that she's dealt, she plays her hand, and she plays it well. And so, why knock her for what she's done? That's not her fault. She's just good at what she does. Doesn't matter what her sex, her gender is. She's great at what she does. And like I tell most guys, you don't want to spar with her because she can fight, and she can fight. She, better. You think females are weak and can't do anything? Get in the ring with her. So. She's just a wonderful person to be around. Mentally, she's strong-minded, and she's a wonderful person. Her heart is, she's wonderful to be with. She's just, I can't speak enough about how wonderful a person she is to be around. And it's fun to be around her. Like I said, I'm the serious person, and she jokes, and we do all this, crazy stuff like one of my kids. So she's good to be around.
I really like that, and I know she's powerful. I saw those legs in that cat suit. I know that power comes from the core and the legs. So I can see that she's powerful. But we fast forward. I'm going to speak quite freely and say that I sensed a bit of fear from her opponent, almost like her opponent feels as if she's been thrown into the deep end of a pool. As a fighter yourself, you would have known, attending presses, having face-offs. Did you feel that fear from her opponent? And I'm not discrediting her opponent at all, because she has also achieved. She's only 23 years old, but I could sense that fear. Now, is Claressa going to be able to pick up on that fear as well? And how does she intend to manipulate that in the ring on Saturday?
Well, the fear that her opponent has, or the fear that any opponent has, most fighters were able to pick up on that right away. You kind of look at your opponent and you can just see it. Emma's a decent fighter, and she's accomplished things, that others haven't. So you can't knock her for that, but she's on a different level now, playing field. She's in the big leagues now, and the sad thing for her is, even though she's here, she's not prepared properly to be there because her opponents aren't the level that Claressa is. So, the fight had to be made for reasons, because in order to, get to Marshall, she had to come to the UK and get this fight first. She doesn't pick her opponents. She just, whatever you put in front of her, she fights. For Emma, this is a chance for her to make some money, because Claressa's kind of like the cash cow of female fight boxing. So for her to, say no would be crazy. Where she can get this kind of payday? Is she in for a long night? Unfortunately, yes. She's in for a long night. It's like you mentioned, you can see in your opponent before you fight them either fear or who's the better fighter. Clarissa's in a class by herself compared to Emma. Was she rushing to this fight? Probably so, because probably the money was hard to turn down. Could she use a few more fights? Yes, she could. But it is what it is, and we're at where we're at. And guess what? She's a fighter, so now she has to prove herself. Should she be in the ring with Claressa? That she's a proof for everybody else to see come Saturday night. Will she be able to prove it? I doubt it, because Claressa's going to, we trained hard for this fight. The one thing I like the fans to realize is, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. We train hard for every fight like the opponent's the champion, and we're the challenger trying to get that belt. That makes her train harder. And then, like I tell Claressa, the one thing she has to realize is, when your opponent signs the contract to fight you, they're telling you that they can beat you. So now you got to say, okay, then we're going to prove to you who's the best fighter. Because that's how I approach it, and a lot of other fighters did. So for her, I let her know. Every time that contract's signed, they're telling you they can beat you. So guess what? Now we got to go out there and prove to whom who the best fighter is. And she likes that. She likes that because, mentally it gets her fired up. And I said, let's go to work, because, and I got to prove her I am the best. And she knows she's the best, so she wants the fans to realize, hey, I'm the best. And, the UK fans are so great. I mean, boxing here is I wish it was the way they are here in America. They love boxing. And not because you have to be a knockout artist here to be a big fighter. If you can really box and you have great skills, they appreciate that. And that's what I love about this UK period. They love boxing, and they accept it, and they appreciate it, and they push it forward. And I hope they jump on this bandwagon for female boxing, keep pushing that. But here it's just, they just love the art of the sport. Not trying to kill each other. If you can win a fight in a good manner and prove how great you are and show your skills, they appreciate that. And that's a wonderful thing. But I'm not trying to get after the answer to your question. She's in a little bit of deep water right now, and she got to swim long and hard to get through this battle. Can she do that? Where I'm standing, no, because I'm the coach of Claressa Shields, and I don't believe any female boxer that can beat her. Does she have a chance? Everybody has a chance, but her chance is slim and none, and Slim's not here. So
we like that, but we're going to move on to the fight that I think is personal to Claressa, because it's an amateur fight that she lost. So I feel like the fight with Savannah Marshall, the fight that is building, that this fight here today is going towards, is something personal, something that she feels that, when you've got something that's bothering you at the back of your head, and you just feel like, I need to really just get back and deal with this issue. It feels to me like that's what the Savannah Marshall fight is. Not looking over Emma, because you can't. You've got to focus on what's in front of you. Talk to me just a little bit on a final note on what Claressa is planning when it comes to fighting Savannah Marshall.
Claressa's, as far as Savannah Marshall is concerned, her plan for Savannah is, let's get past this one first with Emma. But the thing with, the funny thing with Marshall is, that she was not really on Claressa's radar, because Claressa was trying to get the belts, and Savannah was the champion. She finally got herself a belt, so okay, now she's on the radar. Claressa, she takes the loss personally. She does, because it's always thrown in her face. Marshall said this, Marshall said that. She said she beat you. Claressa, okay, maybe she did, but not by a lot. She said, okay, now let's fast forward to the professional ranks. Ask her what she's done lately. Nothing really. She said, I've achieved more as a pro than she has. And Claressa can also say she's become a better fighter since they fought the first time. She was 17. Okay, she was still young in the game and learning how to really box. So now, at this stage of her career and the stage of her life, she's vastly more experienced than Marshall. People don't see that because Marshall says, oh, I beat an amateur. So what? That was years ago when you guys weren't getting paid. Now you're in the professional ranks, you're getting paid for it. It's a lot different. What have you done lately? What have you really done lately? Besides live off the fact that you beat Claressa Shields, and that's what you're always barking about. I beat her. Okay, guess what? After Claressa gets done with her fight on Saturday, and you fight your next fight, I believe in April or whatever, come June, let's get together and see who the better fighter is. They say that Savannah's a big puncher or a harder puncher. It's like I told Claressa, one of Claressa's biggest problems is when she fights, when the bell rings, she comes out the gate trying to hit you. I said, you got to quit doing that, because as soon as you hit them, they're going to take off running. Now you got to chase them for the rest of the fight. And then sometimes you punch too fast. You're just throwing your shots instead of sitting on your shots. And that's what we're working on, to sit down on your shots, because Claressa can't punch. She's very strong, but she rushes her shots sometimes. And, you lose that power when you're just throwing shots like an amateur. So she's gotten a lot better, and we're going to show for this fight here how much better she's become. So getting back to Marshall, here's the biggest thing that Marshall needs to realize. She's not the same fighter you fought back when she was 17, 9 years ago. She's a grown woman now. She's a grown woman. She's matured. And she's ready to go to war with you. She wasn't afraid back then. Trust me, she's not afraid now. She wants to get that victory. She wants that V. She wants to say, hey, not just talk about being the best. She wants to prove she is the best fighter today, female boxer. And, honestly, she wants to prove that she's one of the best top 10 pound-for-pound fighters, male or female. She wants to be included in that, and she should be included in that because of her accomplishments. She should be included as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters, period, no matter what gender you are. But for Savannah, I'm going to take a long time talking, but for Savannah, I think she bit off more than she can chew, because she's talked a good game, but whom have you really fought since you turned pro? You fight guys, you fight females on 3-day notice, 2-day notice, a week notice, that aren't properly prepared. And you build up this record of how great you are when you haven't fought anybody to prove that you really have matured as a professional fighter. Amateur, you were good. But like Claressa says, even the amateurs, how come she never made it to the finals and fought Claressa or anybody else to go and walked away with the gold medal? So you're living off the fact that you beat Claressa years ago. If you guys ever step in the ring and fight each other as pros, you're going to see a totally different fight from a totally different fighter. And maybe she knows that in the back of her mind, so up to this point she really hasn't pushed it. But now you talked a lot and you said certain things. Now it's almost upon us. So a few months you got to prove how truly good you really are. I won't say great, because you haven't reached that accomplishment yet, but we'll say how good you are.
I am not one for wishing my life away, but I can stand here today and quite happily say I'm looking forward to those couple of months rolling forward, because that is going to be another iconic fight for women's boxing, and something that will definitely go down in the books of history in fighting, not just in the female, like you said, but in boxing itself. Coach, thank you so much for your time. You're one of these people that I could speak to forever. I love speaking to coaches because they're like the third eye. They're the ones that can see what the fighters can't. So I'm very honoured and grateful for you taking the time to speak to me today.
It's my pleasure, and it's truly, truly my pleasure. And I want to thank you for allowing me to have a voice on your show. I thank you, and maybe in the future we can do it again.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I'll speak to you soon. Hi, and thank you for watching October Red Boxing. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications. You can also find us on Instagram at October Red Boxing and on Twitter, October Red UK. And remember, at October Red,
we stay ready.